Hello and welcome to my first free tutorial. This is in preparation of live sculpting classes that I will be offering in the near future. But in the meantime, I would like to show you a couple of things and so you can see how I teach. And if you are interested, when the time comes, you can go ahead and enroll for the classes that are going to be live through Facebook. I haven't finalized all the details yet, but I will soon. So one thing that a lot of people see is that they're struggling with ears. Obviously, everybody struggles with something different, but ears seems to be a very common thing to struggle with. So I just wanted to show you the basics, how I do ears. But before I do that, let's start to talk a little bit about the tools that we're gonna need. So I want to show you an armature. This is an armature. I believe I got it from Pat Moulton. It is kind of like shaped like a skull and it's wrapped in a foil. So it's very easy for a novice, a beginner, to get started on that. I am thinking of actually doing beginner and advanced classes. In the beginner classes, we will be talking about anatomy, how to get a sculpture that actually looks like a baby, and using a simple form, I apologize, such as this. But in the advanced classes, we are going to discuss how to get a skull form and the anatomy from just a simple ball of styrofoam or aluminum foil. But for a beginner, this is a very good place to start. Now, even though it looks really good, and it is, I want to show you a comparison with an actual anatomical model of a baby skull. So even though the basics are there, as you can see, the shape is completely different. And let me show you the profile. So this is going to help you with sculpting, but it's not exactly anatomically accurate. This is anatomically accurate. This is an actual casting of a full-term 40-week baby, okay? But for a beginner, this is a really good place to start, okay? All right. I apologize about the shaking. I have a weird phone stand and apparently I keep touching it. So it kind of wobbles a little bit. All right, let's talk tools. Tools are individual preference. When I first started sculpting babies, that was in 1999, because I have been sculpting since I was 6 years old, although that weren't babies at the time. I literally had the back of a paintbrush and toothpicks to sculpt with. Nowadays, and people who have done live classes in person with me in the past, because I have been teaching since 2003, will remember this tool. I've had this tool for 21 years. It's my favorite. It's a spatula. I've tried to find it again. I could never quite find the same one. As you can see, it is so used that the steel is slightly warped. My other favorite tools are silicone tip tools, like these. Or another favorite is this one. Specifically for ears, I like bowl tools. This is a double-sided one, and I love this one. I also have this one that it's a little bit harder to find now. It's also a double-sided one. It's a cup tool on one end and a pointy tip on the other, and mine is kind of falling apart. The tip is kind of like, I don't know if you can see, it's breaking off. And recently, and that's kind of like a new development from people who did classes with me back in the day, I now use brushes to sculpt, and they're so useful. And of course, I have my usual array of needles, sewing needles, but we don't really need sewing needles because they're mostly for creases and details and things like that. And there aren't really that many when you sculpt an ear. So let's talk clay. I use two types of clay. I use Living Doll and Super Sculpey. Each of them has its merits. Sculpey, Super Sculpey is actually stronger and harder than Living Doll. It makes it a really good clay if you want to reproduce your sculpt and you want to go through the molding process. But it's very hard to get a flawless surface to it, and actually get the hardness that is required for the molding process. And I do silicone, but I also done resin, and it's the same process. So in order for it to reach maximum strength, it's gonna end up looking like this. I don't know if you can see it. If you see all those white marks, these will not affect your sculpt because they're actually flat against the surface. But I always sand anyway, but just saying. This means that it has been completely baked. It is rock hard. But if you wanted to sell this as a one of a kind with all those little moons, as we call them, it's probably not going to go over very well. Living Doll is more moist, is more forgiving when it is baked. It will give a nicer surface, so it's perfect for a one of a kind, but it's not as strong as Super Sculpey. That doesn't mean that, you know, over time it's going to break. I've had dolls that I sculpted 20 years ago and they're fine, but they've just been displayed. So for reproduction in silicone, which is the rage right now, I would suggest Super Sculpey just because it is very strong when baked. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is oil. There are two types of smoothing oils that are suitable for polymer clay. One of them is this. This is the Softener and Thinner by Sculpey. Just after COVID started, it has been a little hard to find. I literally bought the last two out of Sculpey's website, and for a while I actually didn't have any. So I turned to mineral oil. $2, big bottle. I got it from Meyer. You don't have Meyer in your state, you definitely have Walmart or CVS. So just regular mineral oil. Just between you and me, it's usually in the laxative section. So, or the baby oil section. The baby oil one smells, and it might smell fantastic on a baby. It does not smell very good. The same smell turns extremely annoying and yucky once it's subjected to heat. Neither will hurt the clay. I've tried both, with one difference. This oil, which is actually what is inside your clay to begin with, will evaporate. The other oil, not so much. So if you use too much, and you let it be, the next day chances are it is still gonna be in the surface. The Sculpey oil, if you use too much and your clay gets too soggy, all you need to do is just let it be for a while, and it will evaporate and your clay will become a little harder. Clay hardnesses. I like my clay to be soft when I have to knead a lot of it. Like if I wanna, again, I did it again, I apologize. If I wanna cover the whole head, then I definitely need my clay to be softer because, you know, I'm not, the last 7 years haven't really been very nice to me. I'm over 40 now. I losing my eyesight after COVID, so I have to wear glasses. My I've got arthritis in my fingers, so I like the soft one when I have to do like a really big area. But when it comes to things like the ears, when I need a lot of control and it is a small piece, I prefer the harder clay. When I do little toes and little fingers, I prefer the harder clay. It will retain the detail a lot better. And because the pieces are going to be so thin, it's not going to distort them. Okay, so these are the few basics. As you can see behind my little head here, I've got pictures of ears. It's just a piece of cardboard that I got from the dollar store and made it into a little stand. I always suggest to my students to go, when they sculpt, they should follow a picture. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to use the whole picture. You can use the eyes from one baby, the nose from another baby, the mouth from a third baby, but always follow a picture. Our brains will distract us. You think you know exactly what a newborn looks like, and if you try to do it from memory, chances are your brain is probably playing tricks with you and replacing significant information, detail, with what your brain believes to be true. So we're sculpting an ear. We have a lot of pictures of ears. So I'm going to pause the video, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the armature with a layer of clay. I'm not going to do anything about the face, but I want to do an ear just to show you how it is done. Alrighty, so I have covered my armature in clay. Obviously there is no face. I'm just doing this as a demonstration for an ear. And I haven't really bothered with smoothing it out too much. I just want to show you how you're gonna do the ear. When we do actual sculpting classes, I'm gonna talk all about placement and orientation, and we're even gonna talk about how to sculpt the ear so it can be molded for vinyl or silicone or resin, because all three materials have different rules. And I guess technically you can mold anything, but I am going to assume everybody is a beginner. I've only been doing silicone for about a year now. I've been doing resin a while longer, and I've been doing vinyl, I believe, since 2006. So I know a little bit about production of everything, and I'm happy to share with you. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is, I'm so sorry I keep bumping this thing. We're gonna take, whoops, yeah, everybody knows I'm clumsy. We're gonna take a little bowl, okay? And I'm gonna cut the bowl in half. You do that, and I'm gonna show you one ear, but you need to do that anyway. just to make sure your ears are going to be the same size. So here's half a ball. Okay, I'm going to make it into a ball again. And as I'm holding it, I'm going to pinch it. And then now it looks a little bit like a lima bean. And I'm going to go ahead, squish it a little more. Okay. This is going to be the back of the ear. This is going to be the front of the ear. So I'm just going to place it. And excuse me for a second because I think my music might be a little distracting. And we're back. So what I have done is I placed the ear, okay? And I only kind of attached the front. So this is what it looks like right now. It looks like a chimpanzee ear. Now I'm going to push it a little bit, okay? All right. So ears are not really that complicated. Ears look a lot like the number 9. And if I can show you a little bit here, there is, as you can see, a huge variety in ear shapes. Newborn ears are different than adult ears. Preemie ears are different than newborn ears. And it's all about cartilage. When babies are born, their cartilage is really soft. So you get folded ears like that. You get pointy ears like that. That's called the Stall's ear. That is a folded ear. This is also a Stall's ear right here. So you get all sorts of ears when a baby is just born. And if you're going for that just born look, chances are the baby ear is gonna be misshapen in one way or another, because of the tightness and the limitations in space in the womb. And you know what? Chances are that each ear is going to look a little different. Eventually, the cartilage in the ear is going to grow a little harder, a little stiffer, and that's going to bring out the final shape of the ear. In preemie babies, and I mentioned preemie babies and I'll do it really briefly, there really isn't much cartilage, especially if they're super early. So basically it's just a flap of skin and you can just fold it and it will stay down. Okay? So preemies are very misshapen ear compared to newborns. So now we have attached our ear by squishing the front here, okay? Because we said this is going to be our front. And we kind of like it to look a little bit like an ear. So kind of like a little shape like this. And I'm going to use my bowl tool. And I am going to create the concha. The concha of the ear is this area here. Okay? So let's start doing that. There we go. We have a hole. All right, remember that I told you that the ear is basically like the number 9? This is a cup tool. It's silicone. It's I like the harder silicones. They do come in hardnesses. So now I'm gonna draw or sculpt the number 9. So not the number ear. I'm sorry. So follow me here. I'm just gonna go around like this. There we go. Okay so far? All right, so we have the concha, this hole here. Now, this is called the helix of the ear, and this is called the ant helix, the inside of the ear. And obviously this is what we call the lobule in medical terms. All right. And then we need the tragus. The tragus is that little area right here. That's like a little triangle. And that's very easy to make. Watch me. I'm going to push here and I'm going to push here. Okay? With me so far? All right. Now I'm going to pull the earlobe a little bit down. See that how it gave it a little more of an ear shape? I'm just smoothing it a little bit. Okay. There we go. Now, the helix actually goes into the ear. Okay? You can see it in this ear very clearly. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to continue the helix inwards. Like this. Just bring it down a little. Okay? How's this? Okay. Now we're going to bring out my little spatula tool, which is this one. And I am going to start connecting the ear to the head so it doesn't fall off, because right now it's not really connected. It's kind of flapping here. So not all of the ear is connected. So you want to bring it here. All right. So keep smoothing. This is as far as I want to go. Okay, now from here on out, from here, this part here, I'm just going to leave the ear alone, okay? It's not going to be connected. We're going to do something in the back, but let's concentrate in the front for now. All right, so we have the basic shape of an ear. We got the tragus here. We have our helix. We have our concha, which is that little, hole here. And I'm so sorry if I keep bumping that thing, the stand. This is the concha right here. This is the ant helix, and we got an earlobe. So basically, pretty much these are the basics of an ear. Now, obviously, that doesn't look very realistic. So let's start working on it. First of all, we are going to move some of the clay here, okay, to help form a thicker part of the helix here. All right, there we go, like so. Now this part here, okay, that looks like a little triangle, this one is called the fossa triangularis, okay, and it's very easy to make. All you need to do is take an appropriate tool like my spatula and just press. Okay, now we're gonna do refining. We got all the basics. Now we just need to do refining. I like ears to be very smooth. I've often thought of newborn ears like little tiny seashells. So I'm gonna take my bowl tool and I'm just gonna smooth things out a bit like this. All right. How's this? All right, now the helix, the ant helix, this part here, I personally don't like it to be too thick. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna make the concha a little bigger just by pushing at it. That's gonna thin this part out too, okay? Okay, I'm gonna bring the tragus a little lower, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be too big. Usually it's actually very tiny. So one moment. Okay. So you can kind of make it smaller by pushing bits of it inside the clay. Now, if you're doing a one of a kind and you're going for the ultimate realism, by all means, go ahead and do an ear canal. It's very easy. Just make a little hole there. If you're going for production, depending on what kind of production you're doing, vinyl is probably okay, but I wouldn't do it on silicone. Not that it's impossible, obviously, and you know, I might not know what I'm talking about because I've only been doing it for a year. I'm pretty sure, and I know for a fact, there are very, very talented ladies out there who have the experience. But I just don't like pulling. Ears is one of those things that can go wrong when you cast, and I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. And if I ever do a little tutorial to show you how I do it, I will explain why. All right, so I'm just refining a little bit. Just keep working on the ear shape. And I am going to put a little bit of oil. I use these little sauce cups. I'm just going to put a little bit of my oil in there. Okay, and then I'm going to use one of my brushes. Now, this is my favorite kind. It's called the cat's tongue. And now I am going to start refining. It's soft, but at the same time it is strong enough to get into all the places that I wanted to get in and smooth things out. I still don't like the tragus that I made here. I still think it's a little big. So I'll keep refining that. Obviously, as you can see, let me bring it a little closer. This needs to be smoothed. So here we go. Keep smoothing. Keep going. Be very frugal with the oil, especially if you are using the mineral oil. It's gonna soften your clay, and it might actually soften it to a point you'll find it extremely hard to work with. So I'm not gonna push hard here. I'm just smoothing in. Remember, I like my ears to be smooth, like little seashells. Okay, so here what it looks like so far. If we do live lessons, I'm definitely doing a different stand because this one has a really long neck that's all twisted, and I keep touching it either with my tool or my hand. So yeah, all right, keep working a little bit. So here we go so far. I'm gonna go back to my brush. I'm just gonna tip the tip of it. I'm gonna dip it and just gently shape what I need to shape. I'm gonna make my triangular, my fossa triangularis here. I don't want any sharp edges, okay? So I'm gonna go over all the edges here, make sure they're nice and soft. All right, now this is just my personal preference because that's just how I like doing ears. I am going to push this out a bit. Okay. I'm telling you, this tool is definitely needs to be replaced because it's gonna fall apart any day now. But for now, it's fine. Now, by pushing this out, what I did was I gave the fossa triangularis a little more shape here, okay? Made it a little bit more pronounced. So basically, once you get the shape, like I showed you in the beginning, literally in the very first few steps, all you need to do is refine. Some areas will need to be thinned, okay? like this one right here. Now the fossa triangularis, as you can see, let me move this a little bit so the camera can focus, has two parts, obviously. Usually this part right here, the lower part, is thinner, see? And this part here is usually thicker. So if you look carefully, can you see how this part right here where my brush is right now is thinner? Now, when you do not need to make this super deep. It's not super deep in humans either, but when you paint it, you are going to shade it right here where my brush is, only this area here, and that's going to give it an illusion of more depth. Okay? Now, you want this part here to be kind of elegant. All right? Now, I'm going to bring the helix here a little closer. All right? Now, I don't really like this part. Usually this part is a little more hollow, if you want to say. So let me just get a tool that I need. Give me just a moment. So this is another bowl tool. Oh my goodness, seriously, I need another stand. I apologize. So I'm just going to go ahead and work on it a little bit, because I do want it to have a little depth. Oh my God, depth. All right, and I want it to be elegant. I want it to be kind of like this. Okay. I'm just gonna leave this alone for now, and then we're gonna talk about how we can shape it. So I am just going to go ahead and work on the ant helix a little bit. So I see a lot of jagged edges. I don't like that, so I'm going to use my brush dipped in oil. And I apologize if you can hear my kids in the background or something like that. It's nighttime. They're supposed to be getting ready for bed. They've been washed, they've been fed. And I told them to be quiet, so I apologize. They're 7 and 8, so yeah. They don't always listen. All right. What do you think now? Now, I've given it a nice, smooth shape, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to make the tragus here a little bit smaller, and I want it a little bit thinner, so I'm just going to give it an angle on the inside a little bit. Okay? Now, remember I told you babies, because of lack of space, usually their ears are misshapen. Well, they're also kind of stuck to their heads for the first few days because, lack of space. Alrighty, so let's create the next thing, which is called the anti-ragus. So bear with me. So we're going to go with this. This is the area we're working on. Oh, sorry. This is the area we're working on like right now. Okay. Do you see it? All right. So this is called the intertragal notch. You do not remember. You really don't need to remember all of those names, but that's what it's called. Okay. Here we go. And I am going, as you can see, there is a kind of like a little bump here, which is the continuation. So it's very easy to make that little bump. All you need to do is kind of raise it a little bit. Fix your little notch here. Smooth it out. And you have a very, very decent ear. Now what I like to do is I kind of like smooshed ears. So that's why I pushed this so far up, so far out. So, I like folded ears on a baby. I have rarely seen a baby without some sort of with perfect ears right after birth. They might be the perfect little seashells a few days after birth, but if you really are going for the just born look, go for it. Smoosh the ear in a bit like this, and there you have it. Just smoothing in a few lines here with a little dip of my brush in oil, because sometimes you leave tool marks behind, and especially if you're doing vinyl, your sculpt is going to go through a wax phase and it's going to be smoothed out, and vinyl does lose detail, so chances are tool marks are not going to be visible. But if you are doing your silicone or your resin, both of those materials will pick up the tiniest thing. And trust me, you can sand the face, you can sand the nose, you can sand the skull. It's very hard to sand tool marks out of little crevices like the ears. Just take a look all around. And there you have it. A very decent ear for a beginner. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize for all the shaking that happened earlier. And it happened again. And I hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful night.